Hey everyone, my name is Ahad Saqib, and thank you again for joining us for episode of Mind, Body, and Roots. Today I have a very close friend, Alex Lazo. We went to Penn State together. We were roommates for a couple of years, and he is an amazing guy in business. So I will, without further ado, let him introduce himself and go from there. So Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Ahad. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being on your podcast. It's really cool to see what you're doing, and I am very appreciative to have the opportunity to be on here. A little about myself. So, as Ahad introduced me, my name's Alex Lazo. I am a Pennsylvania boy, so that's where I was able to meet Ahad, and we did go to college together at Penn State, where we obviously lived together for a couple years, and I'm sure we'll review some of that on the podcast today. But a little background about myself. So, I started out in supply chain and operations when I graduated college. I did that for a couple years before I realized that I wanted to do a little something bigger with my life. I decided that, I've always been good at selling things and I wanted to work on working on bigger things, right? So commercial real estate's always been a passion of mine, real estate as a whole.
Yep.
And I wanted to move to a new market. I did the whole Northeast thing for a while. I was tired of the cold, and it just made sense for me to try out a new city, and Miami was just the perfect fit for me. Came down here after a couple years of doing supply chain and operations up in Pennsylvania, and the best way to transition into a new field, into a new industry that you really have no idea how to exceed at and how to have tremendous success at is to really continue your education, right? So I decided to
Mhm.
get my MBA down at the University of Miami. Really focused on the commercial real estate aspect of the business and the finance aspect of the business. And here I am today. I mean, it's been, let's see, 2018, so 6 years since I've moved down to Miami, and it's been a fun ride so far. So I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. So, let's start with the University of Miami. Like, what made you go there? I know you pursued an MBA there, but like, what made you go into commercial real estate? I know you talked about you had a passion for it, but what really piqued your interest in that?
Yeah, no, I think it starts out with, and that's a really good question. I think it starts out with, my love for real estate as a whole. Why? Growing up, I used to love watching the Million Dollar Listings episodes, the House Hunters, HGTV. I always
Yeah.
just had an interest of that aspect of real estate. It was just something that I sparked a passion with. But I wanted to do something a little bit bigger, right? And commercial real estate is a completely different animal than residential. A lot of people want to join them together, but they are completely different animals, right? And the residential aspect of it, it's more of, this is a nice home. Look how beautiful this kitchen is. This is where you can grow a family, which is
Mhm.
fantastic. And I have a lot of respect for residential realtors, but the commercial aspect is it's a finance-driven world. It's
Yeah.
it's you're dealing with investors, you're dealing with high net worth individuals, right? People aren't buying properties because they look nice, even though them looking nice is a part of the whole process because obviously you want a nice commercial property, but it's all financially driven, right? How much am I
Hmm.
going to invest into this property? What is it going to take for me to acquire this property? What is it going to take to operate this property? And what are the sort of dividends and cash flows and revenues that this is going to produce? And I can see some sort of return on my investment that aren't stocks, that aren't bonds, right?
Yeah.
It's a different type of asset, stocks, bonds, different types of investments are one asset. Real estate's another asset, right?
Hmm.
There's a reason so many of the richest people in the world got their start or still are in real estate
Yeah.
and commercial real estate to be specific, as these funds and institutions and developers continue to build it. Why Miami? I love the city. I love the sunny weather. I love the beach. And it just really fit my personality. But
Yeah.
you'll understand, and Hod knows this, but you'll understand as we continue to throughout this podcast that I'm a very extroverted person. I show a lot of
Yeah.
passion. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and it just fit very well for who I was. My Latin culture background is also another aspect, right? South Florida, Miami is basically a Latin American country located in the United States. And it's a lot of fun, right? You can have a lot of fun here. You can get in a lot of trouble as well. But if you keep your head on straight, yeah, and we'll go through that. But if you keep on your head on straight, you work hard, you meet the right people, it's a city that you can grow on to be tremendous and have a lot of fun while doing it. And University of Miami just had such a prestigious name in the real estate market, but more importantly than that, were the networking opportunities, right? The alumni network down there, especially being down here in South Florida and working down here, the board of directors, the developers, the large acquisitions guys, that you got to meet while attending that program was experience that's second to none.
Amazing. No, I really I appreciate the insights. And I think like you said, like we have a lot to deep dive into, which is going to be interesting. So, let's start all the way from the beginning of your craft. So, okay, we met at Penn State, all right? So, let's talk about Penn State. How was that? How did that shape you? And then how did you land that job at Lutron and how did that, basically catapult you into where you are today? Like I want a whole timeline so that people that are in that same avenue or looking at that same avenue of real estate, how do they get there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, college and a lot of people that are currently in college or maybe looking to go to college, you'll understand that it's probably most of your first time on your own.
Mm-hmm.
It's first time away from mom and dad or your guardians or your brother and sister. And it's a time where you need to understand how to mature, right? And everyone says college is a lot of fun and you do a lot of stupid things and you do, right? And still
Yeah.
doing stupid things to this day. But it's the first time where you're on your own and you have to understand accountability, you have to understand responsibility, how to live on your own, how to balance things, right? How to multitask and juggle different activities, right? Before, when you're in high school and middle school, your mom and dad would tell you when you needed to do your homework, when your soccer practice was at, what time they would wake you up to go to school in the morning. And they would pick you up after, whether you had extracurriculars or just after school. Not much accountability and responsibility. In college, completely changes that, right? You start to meet new people and you start to be a lot more picky about who you hang out with, right? Because mom and dad aren't there to save you anymore. And you'll see the common theme is, you're independent, right? And the independence that I learned from going to Penn State, and Penn State's a great academic school, right? Especially in the area that I was in supply chain. They're one of the top five programs in the country, and you learn a lot, right? So you have to take that with a grain of salt. You have to immerse yourself in the experience, and then take it from there and have fun, smile throughout it. You're gonna fail a lot
Hmm.
throughout college, and you have to take those failures and turn them into success, which I eventually did. It
Yeah.
was a tough and bumpy road, but that journey is a beautiful thing, right? So I know you mentioned Lutron. So I don't know if
Yeah.
many people here know what Lutron is, but Lutron is an electronics company. The
Hmm.
founder of Lutron was the original inventor of the lighting dimmer. So anytime you
Yeah.
see, every apartment, every house, every commercial property has dimmers now, right? Where you can just dim the
Yeah.
lights that you already have installed. He invented that technology. I had a job there as a supply chain engineer where basically my job was to build the supply chain architecture of new products, right? New product operations. Got to work really closely with design engineering teams and help in the assistance of building that architecture, which involved everything from sourcing raw materials, negotiating with suppliers, building out your forecasting models, building out, that manufacturing capacity that we had because, there's so many steps that take place from the inception of an idea of a product to the finished
Hmm.
good that's out in the market ready to sell, right? There's so many steps. You
Yeah.
have to build that whole architecture. It's like building a house, basically, step by step. And I did that for a couple of years, and I really enjoyed it. I learned so much. It really taught me the importance of, hitting deadlines. It taught me the importance of being able to manage people, manage different teams, have everyone on the same page, and communicate effectively, right? So it was a great
Yeah.
experience, and I'm very grateful for that experience. And it really did catapult me into the next stage of my life.
So from Lutron, you went to Miami, and what did you do? You did your MBA, and then from your MBA in Miami, where did you go?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's important. So my MBA was a 2 year full-time program, right? So I
Okay.
was fully immersed. I know a lot of people do part-time programs and executive programs where they take night classes, but this was a
Hmm.
full-time program, which I'm very blessed to do. I know not a lot of people have that opportunity to do that because obviously there's
Yeah.
bills to pay, but I was very blessed to do that. So I knew going into it, commercial real estate was going to be my niche, my area of expertise. And my first job really was an internship in between my first and second year. So that would
Yeah.
have been summer of 2019. And I
Okay.
worked for a company called Newmark Knight Frank, which, if you know, in the commercial real estate industry, they're one of the bigger players, worldwide, as a really a brokerage company, right? So in brokerage and commercial real estate, you're really handling the transactions of assets. I was on their institutional multifamily team up in Boca Raton, up in
Okay.
Florida, and this team was one of the top producing teams in the state of Florida, if not the country, where we dealt with institutional multifamily products, apartment buildings, right? Basic apartment
Hmm.
buildings, new developments, old developments, but usually, these were, we would deal in the transaction of apartment buildings that were 300 units plus in size, right? So
Hmm.
big boys, big boys.
Big
And
boys, yeah.
usually the owners of these institutions or of these properties are institutions, right? So you don't have a lot of mom and pop owners. It's not really even high net worth individuals. There are high net worth individuals that own this, but these apartments are usually owned by large institutions, the Blackstones of the world, the KKRs of the
Yeah.
world, right? Those private equity firms that really specialize in owning these properties, getting a return for their investment and their investors, and then we handle the sale side of it.
Okay. Hmm. So recently I would say you left the company now, right? You've jumped or transitioned somewhere else. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that? Like, how did you decide to switch roles or switch companies essentially?
Yeah, so I mean, so that was an investment sales role, capital markets, as many
Hmm.
people call it. And I actually did that after I graduated in May 2020. I went to work for a boutique firm and did the same aspect of it. But
Okay.
instead of multifamily, I was doing retail properties.
Understood.
So shopping centers, strip centers, your single tenant buildings, right? Those
Hmm.
freestanding buildings that have McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, and really specialize in that, along with some office buildings and industrial buildings. So that continued on. I was at a smaller firm because I graduated in probably the worst time to graduate, which was May of
Yeah.
2020, which, if you remember correctly, I think that was really the beginning of COVID, right? Where the world kind of
Yes.
shut down. So it was tough. It was tough. You're looking forward to graduation, and then everything shuts down, and no
It
one's
shuts
doing
down.
anything. So it's a scary time in my life, but you just have to kind of push through it and figure it out and continue to work hard. So while at that boutique firm, we were a small firm, right? I think 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
Newmark is a multi-billion-dollar public company.
Hmm.
Um, we had a pretty big presence in the retail market in terms of our clientele, the people that knew
Okay.
us, our book of business in South Florida and Miami. And we actually were acquired by a more of a medium-sized company called Franklin Street.
Okay.
They are based out of Tampa, and they've grown so much now. But they acquired us about a year into my hiatus there, and we were basically in charge of retail capital markets down in South Florida, all of Miami. So
Okay.
that was the market that we covered. It was a great run. I was with them for a couple years. I sold over $100 million worth of
Hmm.
properties. I made some good money. I made
Good.
incredible connections, built a great pipeline. And as you in this business, it's sales driven, right? So
Yeah.
you do get the press and you get the press releases and your name's in the newspaper, or I guess not even newspapers anymore, right? The online. And I got a call from CBRE, who is probably, yeah, no, they are the biggest commercial real estate company in the world.
Hmm.
I got a call from them as they wanted to expand one of their practices in Miami in the private capital space. So private capital is different from
Okay.
institutions because private capital are those high net worth individuals and mom and pops, right? That have
Yeah.
a good amount of money to invest, but they don't have those billion dollar size funds that some of these institutions have. So, that's why they call it private capital. And I did that for a year, right? And had the same success, right? Sold a couple buildings. I think it was over $20 million in assets sold over a year in a really rough financial market, right? I think anyone who is in any business understands how tough 2022 to 2023, or really 2023 to 2024 was in terms of the markets and how much they fluctuated, and interest rates and cost of borrowing going up and mortgages coming due. It was a really tough market, right? Not a lot of people were transacting, but we still continued to have some success. And
Hmm.
then that's basically where my capital markets career ended, and I just recently transitioned into something else, which I'll let Ahad speak for a little bit, but I just recently transitioned to something else, which I'll speak about in a little bit. After you ask some questions or continue the conversation.
So, okay, Alex, so you did all of these like selling and buying of properties and such. Like, can someone without like an MBA and all this experience do these types of things, or do they need the same qualifications and the networking that they get from an MBA? Like, if you're us again. Like we're leaving Penn State and we're like, hey, I want to go down to Miami or LA or Las Vegas or something like that. Can I just start right out of college, or do I need to get a master's in business, or do I need to like network, or how do I get started as a young student essentially?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think absolutely you can get started out of college.
Hmm.
You helps, right? I'm not saying that getting an MBA, joining different types of networking events, networking groups is bad. I mean, it helps a ton, right? If you are
Yeah.
able to do it, right? But it's not necessary, and it's also not rocket science what we're doing. It's basic stuff, right? It's not too hard. You do have to understand, finance and financial modeling, and is more specifically client relationship management because that's what it takes up a lot of your time.
Hmm.
But no, I mean, the only thing is if you do want to enter the business, you kind of have to understand where you are, right? If you're entering straight out of college, look for an analyst position, right?
Mm.
An analyst position is basically someone on a team who works for producers, which I was, or a broker, right, which I was, who helps the broker and the producers with all their material, right? They help underwrite the property, they help with marketing materials, they help with back office stuff. And that's really what's going to get your foot in the door. If you have the opportunity to go to get an MBA or grad school, go for it. But there's so many courses online that you can do for free or very inexpensively where it teaches you how to financial model. It teaches you how to understand assets. It teaches you how to underwrite. It teaches you, what the basics and foundations of commercial real estate are. And that's all you really need, right? And my advice is get your MBA or go to grad school if you need it. But if you don't, or if you have the opportunity to, but if you don't, there's so many different avenues that you can get in. And my best piece of advice is, listen, study up, use your resources around you, use the free resources around you, reach out to people in the industry, reach
Yeah.
out to people and pick their brain.
Okay. So, Alex, we were talking about essentially people coming out of college not necessarily needing an MBA. So, can you give me a quick, brief overview of some courses that you would take so that someone can jumpstart their career so they don't have to go down the MBA route unless you think that's absolutely necessary?
Yeah, it's absolutely, not necessary. It's definitely helpful. If you're able to do it, I completely give the green light if you have a chance to do it, to go do it. You just meet incredible people, you get the networking opportunities that
Hmm.
are truly priceless. But even before that, and this is if you don't want to go get an MBA, you're not able to, or if you do end up going to get one, there are a couple courses that I recommend that are extremely helpful and give you an overview of what commercial real estate entails, how to financial model, and really understand what the day to day might be. So you might as well check out if you like it or not before you definitely take the deep dive. But a couple of those are one's called Adventures in CRE, which is commercial
Hmm.
real estate, ACRE, and I don't know how much they cost, but it's not expensive at all. It's pretty inexpensive. Sometimes they're free, right? You can find coupons and things online. And the other one is Breakout into CRE. That one's my personal favorite. It's extremely user friendly. And again, it teaches you how to financial model any asset class that you like, whether you want to, do multifamily or retail or industrial or hospitality, those aspects of it, and just in classes on different career paths as well, right? I was a
Hmm.
broker, now I'm something else. But there are different career paths within the industry that you should explore as well. Maybe not many people are oriented for the sales side, but you might be better for the buy side or the asset management side, the developer side, etc.
Okay. Awesome. So, okay, I know we touched on this just a little bit, but five emerging markets. So is it Miami? Is it New York, Chicago, Vegas, LA? Like, what are we looking at? Like, so say someone to start out, where should they go? Where do they begin their little journey into commercial real estate? What's the best city to start in, or what's the friendliest city, I guess, for them to start at?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have your big boys, right? Your blue chips, which are those big cities: New York, LA, Chicago, Miami. The thing with those cities are the entries to barrier are a lot higher. It's a lot more
Mm-hmm.
competitive. You are going to need, either an in, or you need to know someone, or you do come from one of these, high quality MBA, programs and whatnot. So it's a little bit more difficult. But again, it's not impossible, right? So if you're willing to put the work in, there's always possibilities and willing to meet the right people. But in terms of emerging markets that, could be a little bit simpler, maybe a little lower entry to barriers, and it's not simple anywhere. It's going to be competitive anywhere. It is a great
Mm-hmm.
and lucrative career. There are a couple, right? A couple that come to mind. I see Tampa in Florida as a great, start in your career. I see Austin in Texas, that's growing and that's becoming a lot more competitive, but there still might be time to get there, right? Charlotte in North Carolina, Nashville in Tennessee. Those are markets that I highly recommend for people. They're growing. There's a lot of demand out there because the supply is so high. And, it's a little less competitive. It's always going to be competitive in this industry, but sometimes the less competition for people that are just starting out, the better.
Amazing. Okay, good. So, all right, last part of the whole mind section of the podcast. So now you're transitioning into private equity of commercial real estate. Correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong, but talk about that. How did that end up? Do you recommend people going to that, or like what part of your career had you shift into that role essentially?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll frame this in the simplest way I know how. Just to frame kind of what each section does is, as a broker in investment sales, you're just in charge of the transaction of it. You don't actually own anything, but you get hired by people to
Mm-hmm.
sell their assets, right? So that's that aspect. Now, who are the people that hire those brokers are really either high net worth individuals or private equity firms, right? So Blackstone's a private equity
Mm-hmm.
firm, right? They deal in stocks and bonds and businesses. So it's a little different. So this is real estate private equity. So there are these companies that basically have a fund or a large pool of investments that they pull in from, high net worth individuals, institutions, pension funds, etc. And they pool these to create what you call an investment fund. So it depends, right? There's private equity firms that are smaller that may have, a $20 million investment fund. And there are private equity firms that are bigger that have a $20 billion investment fund. And they buy properties based on their own financial projections on how they're going to perform, usually income producing properties, right? So there's cash flow on a month to month basis. And, that's how they pay out their investors. And at the end of that fund life, usually 5 to 10 years, depending on the company's strategy, they'll sell that asset, right? So they'll buy it, they'll cash flow it, they sell, right? And then they return whatever their expected return was to their investments, right? So basically, a private equity is the owner of the real estate. Um, I decided to transition into it because that was always the goal. My goal was not just to sell and buy
Yeah.
buildings, but was to eventually be part of an ownership group, right? You have a lot more control as an owner, obviously because you own the asset, and you're able to really see the work of you operating it at a high level. You buy a
Mm.
property, you put a lot of work into it in terms of the operations, and you extract as much value as from it as possible, increasing your net operating income, increasing your rental revenue, increasing the quality of the tenants that are at the property, right? And then you sell at the end, and then you start a new fund, right? And it's over and over again, and you are an owner, right? You have this equity interest in a large amount of real estate assets, which I think is everyone's dream, right? A lot of people buy a lot of apartments because they
Mm-hmm.
want to do a lot of Airbnbs, right, etc. I want to be part of an ownership group that owns a lot of commercial buildings in the country, and with that comes it's a lot of fun, a lot of experience, a lot of hard work, but eventually more money in my wallet in my bank account, which is a lot more fun, and it's a little bit different from brokerage because in a brokerage you're chasing business, you don't know when you're going to get your next check because you are all commission based. By the way, I should have mentioned that it is all commission based once you do go into production. So it is eat what you kill. In the
Hmm.
private equity world, it's a little bit more stable, which is great.
Gotcha.
If you're a high ranking producer, trust me, you are making millions of dollars. In the private equity world, it's a little bit more control of you do in your day to day and the ultimate performance of your assets.
Okay. Awesome. So, last question about this. I would say, can a small Joe like me, like a physician or a dentist or someone that's even in regular real estate, invest with your company? Or where do they get started with commercial real estate?
Yeah, I mean, so with my company, it's a little bit more different because we are a bigger fund,
Okay.
right? So you have to have some sort of minimum to invest. You can, right? But it depends. You have to find the right fund to invest with, right? There are companies that you can invest with, $500,000 investment, right? $1 million investment. With
Hmm.
us, you have to have kind of a minimum of $10 to $20 million, right? So yes, you can invest, and there are many funds that will accept, uh, you know, all types of ranges of money. So yes, you as a physician, if you find the right fund and research the right company to invest in, you are more than welcome to invest with them, right? So it's pretty easy if you have the equity and cash flow to do that. I highly recommend it
Hmm.
because the returns are pretty good. Never put all your eggs in a basket, right? Diversification is key. I preach diversification. Invest something that you're comfortable with
Hmm.
not having because you won't have it for a while, right? You will be paid dividends on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis, and then you won't see your full return until the end of a hold, which could be 5 to 10 years. But yeah, I mean, it's very possible for anyone that has the equity, that has some capital that they're looking to invest in some of these funds, and they're all over the country. So you just have to do your research and find the right one that makes the most sense for you.
Makes sense. Now, another follow-up to that. Is there any pitfalls or warning signs that, one should look out if they do decide to go with one of these companies? Anything that you being in the business, is there anything that you should just be weary about?
Yeah, I mean, you want to make sure they have a good track record. Look
Hmm.
at other previous investments, see how they
Hmm.
performed. Do your research, right? Most of this stuff is public information. So,
Okay.
before you put in a bunch of money in with someone is look it up, see how their previous investments performed. Talk to people that have invested with them, right? People that have done it before with them, they'll give you the ins and outs of how they feel and talk to the person, right? Usually these companies have a large investor relations teams or small investor relations teams, it doesn't matter. And you're going to be speaking to someone that is focused on, the relationship aspect of your investors. It's just like anything else in the world, whether you make friends or a girlfriend or a wife, right? You have to like the person. You have to have a good gut feeling. You have to
Yeah.
you have to know that they know that what they're talking about. Vet them. It's your money, it's your hard-earned money, but do the research, do the work, and ultimately, it's a gut feeling too, right? No investment is 100% going to be incredible, right? Make sure you're investing with the right people. Any red flags that, read reviews online. It's basic stuff like that that will help you make a decision if it's the right fund for you to invest in.
Awesome. No, thank you so much, Alex. It's like a lot of insight. It's a lot. And I'm sure, honestly, if we continued down this road, we would probably talk for hours. All right, Alex. So we talked about like the whole craft and, your private equity fund and having young people like follow your footsteps and figuring that all out. So another part I want to really, touch on is athletics. You've always been in athletics. You've been a monster at soccer, a big lifter. I mean, hell, I learned powerlifting from you, and I don't even know where to begin. You've always been a very talented athlete. So can you like talk about, growing up, like where did this athleticism start? Where did your love for soccer and football start? Maybe in lacrosse, and then just kind of take us through that whole journey.
Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate the kind words there. Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, physical activity is one of the most important things anyone can do. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go and lift the most weight at the gym, or you have to be a professional
Hmm.
athlete, or you have to be the most insane athlete has ever lived, right? Physical activity, just,
Hmm.
going for a walk, going for a run, doing yoga and Pilates, and I've done it all just is such a driver for how you perform in your day-to-day life in every aspect of your life, right? Professionally, personally, with your relationships. So I think that's first and foremost the most important. I mean, growing up, I was just very into sports, right? I have a good background in good genetics with my dad and his brothers, and they were all, big time soccer players. And, I used to remember watching soccer games as a little kid with my dad, right? And I had no idea what was going
Hmm.
on. But it was a great time that I spent with him. And I think, those moments are kind of what triggered something in my head to really continue that path and excel at anything I did. And I tried to play all sports growing up. I couldn't stay still. I have a very competitive mindset, and I think most of you have figured that out over the course of this video. Is I'm very competitive. I like to succeed. I like to beat people. I'm not a sore loser, but I like to win. And sports gives you a great opportunity to do that, right? It's that there's an end result, whether you play a game or you're at practice or you score a goal or a basket or whatever it is, whatever sport you're playing. There's an end result that is extremely measurable to your success, right? If you played well, you're gonna win. If you play badly, you're gonna lose, and you have work to do. And that's something that you can apply to a lot of things in your life ultimately. And then just staying in shape, right? In order to succeed at a lot of sports, and me being that competitive person who always wanted to win, you have to be a little bit more physically dominant than someone else in many areas, right? going to the gym is something that I love to do to this day. I go on a daily basis, sometimes twice a day.
Yeah.
And I like to look good, which I think is really important. Look good,
Yeah.
feel good, perform well is what I always say. But I think it also instills a certain discipline in you. Sometimes going to the gym isn't
Yeah.
fun. Sometimes it is. I enjoy it. But some days, whether you're hungover or you're tired from work or it's too late at night or too early in the morning, you don't want to go, you kind of push yourself to go. And
Yeah.
I think it's more than just getting a workout in. It's more of instilling that mental discipline that helps you in a lot of aspects. If you're able to create a schedule and know that I'm going to work out for 45 minutes a day, right? I'm not saying you have to work out for 4 hours a day. I've done it. I like to do it.
Yeah.
But 45, 30 minutes a day, right? Get on your
Hmm.
floor and do some push-ups and do some squats, do some body exercise, right? If you don't can't afford a gym membership, do that. Go for a run, go for a walk. It instills a certain discipline in you that you kind of carry on a daily basis. So when you're doing work, when you're sitting in front of an Excel spreadsheet all day, or you have 20 meetings in a row, or you have to cold call 50 owners of properties or whatever it may be, that sort of instills that discipline that we have to get this work done. Sometimes it's ugly, sometimes it's not fun, sometimes it's not pretty, but I have to do this in order to succeed because in order to reach levels of success, you have to do the dirty work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I've been on that twice a day for probably over 2 years, and people like question like, "Are you mentally okay? Are you doing fine?" I was like, "Yeah." For me, it's how I decompress. It's how I start my mornings, and that morning
Right?
routine helps me get prepped and ready for to take on a bunch of patients. And then at the end of the day, I have to decompress. If I don't decompress, then I can't serve my patients well. And so for me, I totally understand where you're coming from. I think athletics and being fit, it teaches you discipline, and when even you could even extend it to when you're looking for a partner, whether it's male or female. If that person has those qualities, and even in business, that they're going to be disciplined, they're going to be honest, they're going to be on a deadline, on a schedule, because they have those habits instilled in them. And that's kind of how you build a stronger unit, a network, in both business and in life, I think. So I think fitness is a big crux that people don't talk about enough and really understate its importance. And like you touched on, there are times where, man, I'm like, fudge, I really don't want to go to the gym, man. Like, it's the same crap all over again. But it's like, no, I have to go. And there's more days where I don't want to go, but I go and I'm like, you know what? This is the best decision that I made today. So I get it.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. We're creatures of habit,
Yeah.
and let's use it to our advantage.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. In terms of your routine currently, what are you doing? How do you stay so disciplined on it? And what are some of your most favorite workouts or activities that you partake in Miami?
Yeah, I mean, my current routine is, I usually like to lift in the morning, and I like
Hmm.
to, work during the day, obviously, and then I like to do some sort of cardio at night, whether it's
Hmm.
running, whether it's going for a walk. I've really been into walking lately because it's a time where I can kind of relax. I put my AirPods on, I'll listen to a podcast, and whatever it might be. It might be a mind podcast or a financial podcast or Joe Rogan sometimes, entertainment stuff.
Hmm.
And that's usually my routine. That's what I do. What was the second question again?
The second part was, are there any, specifics to that routine? What has it enabled you to do essentially?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just going back to what I said before. I think it's enabled me to be a lot more disciplined in my day-to-day tasks that I do at work. It makes me feel good. I think the big thing is, you look good, you feel good, your clothes feel a lot better, and when your clothes fit a lot better, it's just easier to do work at a high level. I don't know
Yeah.
what the phenomena is or how to really explain that, but there are times, there have been times where, you kind of get out of shape a little bit and your dress shirt fits a little bit tighter. And
Hmm.
you're at work and you can kind of feel it, it's a little bit tighter. And you start focusing on that, right? Instead of focusing on the task at hand.
Yeah.
So when you look good and your clothes fit well, you're at work. I'm like, damn, I look good. I look great. I feel good.
Yeah.
Let me get to work. It's so funny how little things like that can affect your productivity on so many levels, which really ultimately affects the quality of your work.
Yeah. Absolutely. So now you also touched about Pilates, yoga. Do you still do those things? Do you recommend them for people that are athletics? Like, how does that play a role in the overall athleticism and fitness?
Yeah, look, listen, I think you should do what you enjoy doing the most. I've done
Hmm.
it all. I've done the high intensity interval training. I've boxed, which I really enjoyed boxing. I
Hmm.
love Pilates. Pilates is a hell of a workout. I know a lot of women do Pilates and maybe males will look at it and then say, no, that's a girl's workout. No, it's not. I mean, that thing kills you. I have a lot of respect for the women that do Pilates on a daily basis because you will be in there for 45 minutes and it's these little minute movements that you wouldn't expect to be so difficult. And you are shaking. I kid you not. But I will tell you that that is the best workout if you really want to build a core and your core strength is everything.
Yeah.
Yoga is fantastic. I love hot yoga. It's just a little, it's great for flexibility. I'm not very flexible to begin with, so I look a little funny in there doing, all these crazy poses. But it does improve your flexibility and it's great. It's a great relaxation tool. Um, and I've ran a marathon before. Running was never my thing, and then I really got into running.
Hmm.
That runner's high is a real thing. A lot of people talk about it, and I didn't believe them until I actually got one. I'm like, okay, I like this. You just have to find kind of what you like. So many people like that high intensity stuff. They like that little competitive group class that maybe they're taking, and they look at the person left to them or right to them, and they want to do a little bit better. Some people, just want to do that relaxation stuff, that yoga and Pilates, even though it's not really relaxing. And low impact movements because they might have trouble with their knees or their back or their shoulders or whatever it may be. So some of those
Hmm.
low impact activities work better for them. I recommend trying it all, and then figure out what you enjoyed the most and then stick to that.
Makes sense. And honestly, like, dude, like, I remember you and I hated running, especially in college. Do you remember that time where we got those black masks, those like oxygen deprivation masks, and we started training with those up the stairs?
Yeah, I'll never forget that. I think I still have that mask, to be honest with
I
you.
still have it too. I actually have used it like
Yeah.
maybe like 6 months ago or a year ago, and I was like, wow, I remember this. This is kind of cool. I actually don't know if it has any
Well,
scientific evidence, but it was a kind of cool thing.
I don't think it does. I guess I just like feeling the suffering.
Fair. Yeah, it was a good time, man. Good time. It was ridiculous. If you and I went back to college, do you think we would, looking back now, like a couple years now, almost 10 years, crazy, right? But do you think that we would have
Yeah.
benefited from doing more like yoga and Pilates and stretching? Because we just were powerlifters. We were just eating a ton of food, lifting heavy, hurting our backs and our like elbows. Do you think we should have? I mean, if we had the chance, would we go back and change things, or would you actually at least, or did we do it right?
I kind of battle with that question because I don't believe you should ever regret anything you ever did, because
Yeah.
it's part of growing and your life, and you learn and you grow from that, and you fix mistakes and whatnot. But at the same time, I mean, you're just so young and so stupid, and you just want to be the biggest guy in the gym. And of course, we would have benefited from it. I mean, we probably would have been in better shape. I got so fat because I'm just eating a ton and lifting so much weight, and you're just like, oh, I'm such a big guy, and it's just like that's probably not that the healthiest thing to do. Would I have done it
Yeah.
differently? I mean, maybe. I think
Hmm.
a lot of the lifting was done ego based, and now
Yeah.
that I'm older, you kind of realize you don't really need to be lifting 500 plus pounds, and you really have to have more functional movements to your muscles and the way your body works and bone works. And it's good to lift because it does create that muscle that helps you do a lot of those things, but no need to try to beat the powerlifting world record on a day-to-day basis. But
Yeah.
it was fun. I enjoyed it. We had a good time, so no regrets.
Yeah, none. Honestly, I look back and I'm like, man, my form was horrible at times. And then I'm like, man, I really screwed up my joints. But you know what? It is what it is. We had a good time doing it. Those are memories that you don't forget. Like, remember us like lifting the white building at like midnight at like 1 o'clock in the morning? Like, yeah, let's just go. We don't do that anymore. I mean, I don't. I don't know about you, but I still definitely go early in the morning, but not like 1 o'clock in the morning.
I like to sleep.
Yeah, sleep. Dude, talking about sleep, that's a huge aspect, which we don't talk about when we're young because it doesn't matter. But now I've realized its importance. I don't know about you, but it really plays a role on how I feel and when I go into doing athletic stuff.
Sleep is everything. And, I didn't really believe in it till honestly recently, till I turned 30. And
Uh-huh.
I feel like once I turned 30, I was just like, I need my sleep. Because even in like
Yeah.
my mid to late 20s, I mean, we live in Miami, right? I know a lot of cities and towns are used to bars and clubs closing at 2 a.m. It doesn't happen in Miami, right? Things close here at 7, 8 in the morning, sometimes go all day. And I was living my best life, and I still am. But there were many, many days and weekends where I would go with zero sleep and I would go to work and I would have zero sleep in me. And I was able to perform because you're just a young guy.
Yeah.
But now that I'm 30 and I'm a little older and things take a little longer to get through, I need my sleep. I try to go to bed early unless there's a really good game on. I'll watch the game. And I'll try to sleep until the latest possible minute, depending if I'm going to go to the gym that morning or if I have an early morning meeting. I'm very punctual, so I like to wake up as early as I can. But I like to push the limits as well. Sleep is so important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that, anymore. So okay, let's transition into the roots aspect of the whole podcast, man. Like this is like the real guts of everything. So you grew up as a Colombian American and you grew up in Pennsylvania, which wasn't very diverse when we were little. And then you moved to Miami, and it was a whole different like ball game. It was Latina Central. And how did you transition? Growing up in Pennsylvania, how did that affect you growing up, your friends, and then moving back to Miami many years later? Did it change how you looked at the world or anything like that?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, growing up in mostly a suburban, white area in Pennsylvania, definitely had its challenges.
Hmm.
But I always was, and I think this is different for so many people. But I also wasn't afraid to really show it and embrace it around school. And I think that was a confidence level that was never really a problem growing up. And I think it showed people how cool the culture was, really.
Yeah.
So that's the way I kind of looked at it. I think the problem nowadays is a lot of people have these narratives, judgments, predetermined thoughts on different people's culture, and sometimes.
Hmm.
Us as individuals don't help that narrative, either by getting insulted or, creating that negative connotation to it. But I always thought the opposite. And I was always kind of embrace the judgment as well.
Yeah.
And, taught people what it was all about. And I think with that confidence and just acting a little bit cool, and not being too hurt over certain things, you start to make people understand, what it's all about. And you do have to have thick skin sometimes, which I do
Yeah.
have. But I think that's the big thing: is embrace who you are, show it out with confidence. Don't take too hard what people have, because you don't know how they grew up. You sometimes don't know what their
Yeah.
preconceived judgments are. And as an alternative, explain or show what it's really all about. And usually when you do that, all those judgments are gone. It's kind of like everything you do, clear and effective communication is really the key to everything.
Yeah. And, I wish that I was like you. I wish I was confident and I had thick skin because I had the exact opposite of experience as you. And, growing up was like the most difficult thing for me. But maybe, if you were around during my high school, middle school days, maybe things would have been different because I know growing up, you and Sebastian really helped pick me up as a person and help me be more confident and like have those conversations and, embrace my culture because before that, I wasn't embracing anything. So no, I really appreciate your perspective, and I think looking back, I don't know if I necessarily regret it, but I definitely think of it as a lesson that I wish I would have embraced me more than anything else. Having you two come into my life and fixing my Spanish and making me more fluent, teaching me how to bachata, introducing me to Latin music, and having those Spanish Sunday music cleaning sessions and all those things, man. You guys truly embraced Spanish culture, and then also made me a part of it. So I appreciate that. And I wish more people were like both of you. I know Sebastian's not here, but he would probably say something of this similar nature.
Well, I'm glad, man. I'm glad, brother, that we made such a positive impact on you. And maybe it wasn't as fantastic for you growing up, but the past is in the past, and all that matters is what you learned along the way. And now you're embracing it, which is the most important thing. And now you can be better.
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, so say you are a young Alex or a young kid growing up in today's society, social media and all that. and there are a lot of different cultures. What would you say to someone if say it was me again, but like reincarnated into like a little kid? What would you do for them differently so that they wouldn't feel that way? Like how would you make them feel more embracing of their culture if you could had to deal with that situation?
I think just having conversations with the right people. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, social media is such a tough thing to navigate today because we didn't really have it when we were young. We had some of it, but it wasn't as big as
Yeah.
it is today. And a lot of the things you see on social media just aren't true. A lot of things are exaggerated,
Mhm.
and it kind of plays into effect into our mental health as well, especially the kids nowadays. But my advice is to go experience it, right? Don't live through a lens of what you see on Instagram or on TikTok or Snapchat or whatever else these kids are using these days, but go out and experience the events that your culture may do. Talk to your parents about it, talk to your family about it, and fully immerse yourself, embrace it, eat the food, do the dances. Like
Yeah.
that's the fun part. But you have to experience it, right? There's nothing quite like doing it hands on, being involved in the atmosphere of whatever you may be doing, because that feeling is different, right? It's one thing to see a TikTok
Yeah.
and you're scrolling and it's like, oh, that looks cool. But it's another thing when you're out in the middle of a dance floor with a bunch of, Colombians or, your whatever your culture may be, and the music's pumping and you're dancing your salsa or merengue. That's a different feeling, and that's when you really learn to
Yeah.
say, this is cool. I'm gonna embrace it, and I'm gonna do everything I can to really enjoy this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Alex, and I'm following up with this because I think you answered it very well. So, when you have kids, in the future, how are you going to make sure that they embrace their culture and like not feel isolated? Yeah. How would you guarantee that, I guess?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I think it goes back to how what advice I would give kids nowadays is I would be very involved
Hmm.
in them experiencing what the culture involves. I
Hmm.
think very importantly is to learn the language, learn the food,
Yep.
learn to love it, take the trips, right? I think many people may not be fortunate of this enough, but I know that I'm in a fortunate enough position where, I can afford to take my kids to different countries and let them see what it's like, let them live it, let them breathe it, let them taste it. Use all their five senses to really, really see that. And one thing is to teach them to not be ashamed. Teach them to not be ashamed of anything,
Yeah.
right? And if they come out anything like me, I don't think they'll ever be ashamed of anything. But my teachings will be, hey, be yourself, take it easy, don't listen to the outside noise, enjoy what you like to do. This is who we are. Embrace it, have fun with it, because it's something that's second to none in those experiences that I've had growing up, and my parents taking me places and experiencing the dances and the food and all that other stuff. My that's what I would do. I mean, I would just tell them take it easy, shut out the outside noise, let's go live life.
Awesome. Awesome. So, okay, we're basically getting towards the end of this. So, my final question to you today, Alex, is there one lesson that your parents taught you, either from a cultural or a familial standpoint, that impacted you? And if you could pick one lesson from it, what would it be and why?
I think there's two that come to mind immediately.
Okay,
One
go for it.
is you're always enough, and
Mm,
that's just like it's so simple, right? You are always enough. It's three words. And it's so simple, but
mm,
it's true, right? Sometimes you doubt yourself and whatever you're doing. You compare yourself. Comparison is the joy of thief, or the thief of joy, whatever, however that saying goes. And you're hard on yourself, and that's okay, right? It's good to have standards. It's good to have goals. It's good to have high standards for yourself. But no matter what happens, no matter, and this will lead to the second point that I'm going is no matter how many times you fail, you're always going to be enough. And right. And so when sometimes things don't go the way you
mm,
want them to go, it's because something else is coming better, or because this was a learning lesson on, your journey toward whatever your goal may be. Right. Which really leads me to the second one is embrace your failures, right? Embrace your
yeah,
failures, learn how to make mistakes. You're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way. You're gonna mess up a lot, but don't bury your head inside those mistakes. Really learn from those mistakes, take them and learn from them and grow from them. And every time you fall down, keep on getting up. Um, because nothing's
Yeah.
ever really gonna, mistakes are never gonna completely change your trajectory of your life. It's just a building block on how you can be a better version of yourself. And remember, don't compare yourself to others. It's hard now in social media. You see a lot of people doing all these things and traveling, making money, and most of it is fake anyway. They're just doing it for content. Focus on yourself, do
Yeah.
what makes you happy. Don't focus on the zeros in your bank account because that's going to stress you out. Enjoy your job, enjoy
Hmm.
your career, enjoy the activities you do, enjoy the people that you love. Spend time with them. That's the most important thing is the people that you love are priceless. Spend time with them. Time is, there's an end to it. So time is the most valuable asset you can have. I do all real estate assets, but time's the most valuable one. And just enjoy
Yeah.
life, man. Sometimes, smile through it. Go outside, look at the sky, look at the grass. We are so blessed to be here, each and every one of us.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, no matter where you come from, no matter what situation you are in, you win at life by being alive today. So think about it that way, and then everything else is just extra.
I freaking love that, man. Like honestly, like we've been very, knock on wood, blessed, have great careers between the both of us and the people I'm looking to, interview in a podcast. We've been successful, seriously. Now everything we do is literally like the gravy on top. So I really couldn't agree with that more. And, I appreciate your insights and those lessons, man, because it's all about getting back up even after failing 7 times. That eighth time is probably the time you succeed. You never know, and you are enough, like, and that's, I think that takes a long time of realization for people to come to that conclusion, and once you do, then you're basically unstoppable. So Alex, thank you so much for your time, man. I know we had a ton of technical issues. We've been working through them all throughout the recording, but I think we'll be able to get a really solid preparation of video. And I think the advice on real estate, life, athletics, I think you have a great perspective. And I just want to say thank you so much for your time and your energy. And to the podcast listeners that are listening, I really hope you take some gold nuggets from Alex. He's a great guy. I mean, I've learned so much. I've grown up from him a lot. And he's just a great dude, man, and a great friend of mine. I mean, we don't touch base as often as we used to back in college, but when we do reconnect, it's always a good time. So thank you so much, Alex. I appreciate it. So thank you, and everyone, for joining us for the podcast, Mind, Body, and Roots. I appreciate your time, your energy, and your ability to listen to all of us. Thank you. Take care. Be well.